If you were accused of stealing inside the very store you founded, what would you do? Ma'am, I need you to open your purse and show me what's inside. That sentence rang out through the delicate silence of Luxe and Velour, a prestigious boutique in Beverly Hills, like a cold blade slicing through the air of luxury. Denise Carraway, the store manager with perfectly curled hair and a tailored Chanel suit, stepped forward to block a woman near the exit. That woman was Naomi Ellington, a black woman dressed with quiet elegance, designer jeans, a fitted blazer, and a vintage Hermès bag weathered with time. Under the glow of crystal chandeliers on marble floors, with the faint scent of expensive perfume hanging like a veil of nobility, everything seemed to freeze as the invisible accusation escaped Denise's lips. Naomi tightened her grip on her bag, and her expression didn't show anger, but something deeper, a weariness born of familiarity. She had been doubted before, judged before, simply for her skin color and understated presence. "What exactly do you think I took?" Naomi asked, her voice calm, yet cutting through the rising tension in the boutique like a rising wave. What Denise didn't know was that the woman she was humiliating wasn't just another customer. She was the very woman who had built this fashion empire from the ground up, driven by a vision to reshape the luxury retail world. Naomi was the founder of Luxe and Velour, but 45 minutes before that truth would come to light, Naomi was just a quiet visitor stepping out of an old Uber. No private chauffeur, no security detail, no flashy jewelry. She had come to observe the service firsthand, a surprise inspection of the very first store she ever opened, the one she poured $12 million into to prove that high fashion could be both elite and inclusive. Through the clear glass storefront, Naomi had seen a familiar scene. Mostly wealthy white women, sipping champagne, browsing clothes under the careful attention of staff. But something in the air felt wrong. Not in the decor, but in the way the staff's eyes slid past her. And when Denise emerged, with a smile that never reached her eyes, Naomi realized today wouldn't just be a service audit. It would be a reckoning for the very philosophy she had spent a lifetime building. Elegance often hides in the smallest of details, but prejudice reveals itself blatantly through words. "I saw you slip something into your bag when you thought no one was watching." Denise's voice rang out loud enough for the entire showroom to hear. She stood tall, red lips pressed tight as if she had just uncovered a crime, while the other employees slowly gathered behind the counter, phones in hand, eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and quiet satisfaction. Customers stopped browsing, a few stepped back, and judgmental stares draped over Naomi like an invisible net. But Naomi didn't step back. She met Denise's eyes without a flicker of fear or confusion, only the deep, steady stillness of someone who had endured this too many times before. Naomi asked, "And what exactly do you think I took?" What seemed like a simple question caught Denise off guard for a moment, but she quickly recovered the poise of a seasoned manager. "We'll find out when we check," she replied, unaware she had just crossed the line of professionalism. Naomi's voice remained calm. "I see." She didn't need to raise her voice to assert her innocence. Those who have spent a lifetime proving their worth do not react like someone who has lost control. They observe. They remember. And they wait for the right moment. Naomi knew this routine all too well, where a glance, an outfit, or a vintage bag becomes grounds for suspicion. She had faced this before, but this time was different. Because this wasn't someone else's store. This was her brainchild. The embodiment of a dream realized through relentless effort by a black woman in a luxury fashion world long defined by bias and white privilege. But Denise didn't know that. Nor did she see the eyes of a young employee silently recording from behind the fragrance display. No one in the boutique knew that within hours, the outside world would know everything. But Naomi knew. She knew that the words spoken so carelessly today would become evidence tomorrow, and that one false accusation, spoken to the wrong person, could bring down an entire system. 45 minutes before the confrontation, Naomi Ellington stepped through the thick glass doors of Luxe and Velour on a sun-drenched California afternoon. There were no flashing cameras, no warm welcomes from staff. She came only with sharp observation and the gaze of someone who knew every stone tile beneath her feet, every piece of clothing displayed behind the glass cases. Naomi wasn't there to shop. She came to feel, to see whether the space she had once built with all her heart still held the spirit she had dreamed of, a place that didn't just sell fashion, but respected every person who walked in. She saw white customers trying on Valentino dresses, sipping Dom Perignon as if it were their birthright. Staff bowed slightly, their voices gentle as if rehearsed. But as Naomi stepped in, no one smiled. The receptionist glanced at her, then looked back down at her screen, as if Naomi were an inconvenience. "Do you need anything?" the girl asked, her voice cold as steel, nothing like how a luxury brand should greet a guest. "Just browsing," Naomi replied softly, but from the receptionist's eyes, those two words seemed to come with a silent judgment. "Can't afford." Then Denise appeared, with the stride of someone who believed she owned the place. She offered a smile sharp as glass, extending a hand like it were a ritual of evaluating status. "Welcome to Luxe and Velour. Is this your first time visiting?" Naomi didn't answer right away. She noticed the quick glance Denise gave her shoes, her coat, her handbag. That look wasn't welcoming. It was appraising. "Not exactly the first," Naomi replied curtly. Denise nodded, her gaze sharpening. "Our accessories start at $800. Ready? To wear pieces from $1,500. We also offer financing if that's helpful." That sentence landed like a velvet slap. Naomi smiled gently and asked, "What do you recommend for me?" Denise gestured toward the discount section. "We have a few pieces on promotion, a bit more accessible." Naomi didn't need to look. She already understood. In Denise's eyes, she didn't belong here. But Denise didn't know that every design hanging in that store, Naomi had chosen them, approved each collection, signed off on every pricing sheet. Naomi didn't need to prove anything. She just needed to listen a little longer, to see how far the system she once believed in had been distorted, and by whom. Denise Caraway, with 12 years of experience in the luxury fashion industry, didn't need long to categorize her customers. To her, a single glance was enough to decide who was a buyer and who was just a dreamer. And Naomi Ellington, with her understated style and calm confidence, clearly didn't fit the VIP customer image Denise believed represented the brand's standard. So when Naomi began asking in-depth questions about collections, fabrics, and the trunk show schedule for loyal clients, Denise felt challenged, and that irritated her. We offer private consultations for VIP clients only, those who spend at least $50,000 a year, Denise said, her voice even and sharp like a razor. Naomi tilted her head slightly. I may already be in your customer database. Denise let out a brief laugh, one entirely devoid of warmth. Everyone says that, dear, when they want to seem like a potential buyer. The surrounding shoppers began paying closer attention to the exchange. A few subtly lifted their phones to record. Denise didn't notice, or perhaps she thought she didn't need to care. In her world, control belonged to the person who commanded the space, and today, she believed that person was her. Naomi remained unsettlingly calm. And what about personalized styling services? I heard Luxe and Velour has a team of stylists for clients seeking more tailored advice. Denise didn't answer right away. She hesitated for a moment, then tried to regain control. We only provide that to clients with a proven history of serious purchasing, not for those who are just browsing. Naomi smiled, but the warmth in her eyes had disappeared. What replaced it was the look of someone who had just been rejected by the very place she founded, by someone she herself had once approved for hiring. Denise continued, as if giving a lesson. 12 years in this industry have taught me how to tell who's here to invest in real fashion and who's just trying things on for photos. She spoke, unaware that her every word was being recorded, each syllable preserved on video. Naomi didn't react. She just stood there in a space she once dreamed would break down all barriers and quietly let Denise lead herself to the edge. One more step, and arrogance would turn into a mistake that couldn't be undone. And Naomi, with all the calm she had mastered, knew exactly when to stay silent, so that prejudice could speak for itself. Naomi Ellington walked slowly toward the limited edition handbag display, where she had once personally approved each design, with the hope they would inspire customers through the blend of aesthetics and intrinsic value. She was quietly inspecting the quality of a rare bag's handle when Denise's voice rang out behind her, anything but gentle. Ma'am, I need you to be more careful with that item. Naomi turned, surprised. Careful in what sense? I've been watching you, Denise replied, her tone sharp with suspicion. Frankly, your behavior concerns me. You're touching high, value items without any indication of intent to purchase. It affects the boutique's image. The boutique seemed to fall silent. Other customers turned their heads, attention locking onto Naomi, the only woman of color in the store. Sales associates paused behind the counter, some subtly filming, others simply staring. Naomi responded slowly. I am shopping. Isn't that what this store is meant for? Or are you just pretending to be a customer? Denise shot back, then abruptly reached forward and opened Naomi's vintage Hermes bag without permission, like a security officer conducting a search at an airport. This bag, where did you get it? Naomi inhaled deeply. That's my personal property. Denise glanced through the contents, wallet, platinum credit cards, car keys, but her eyes didn't stop there. They landed on a thought, and then the worst thing slipped out. These items don't usually end up in the hands of people like you. The words dropped like a hammer, not just for Naomi, but for the entire room. Some staff exchanged uneasy looks. A young shopper recorded the entire scene on her phone. What exactly do you mean by people like me? Naomi asked, her voice still calm. People who typically come in to fantasize, not to buy. People who ask too many questions about services they don't qualify for. In Denise's eyes was an unapologetic contempt. An elderly woman at the jewelry counter nodded in agreement, as if she had just heard the most reasonable statement of the day. Naomi didn't shout. She simply asked, "Are you questioning my employment and financial status to justify rummaging through my bag in my own store?" Denise answered coldly, "I'm conducting loss prevention. Your behavior is suspicious." Naomi sighed. "So you're accusing me of theft?" "I need to confirm you haven't taken anything without paying," Denise repeated. Naomi gently placed her bag down and opened it wide in front of the staff and customers. Nothing was hidden. Yet Denise's expression didn't show relief. If anything, she looked disappointed. "You're lucky," she said coldly. "I won't call the police this time. But you should leave now." Naomi nodded. "I'll remember this moment very clearly." And she walked toward the exit, leaving the entire room frozen, as if sealed shut by the very prejudices that had just revealed themselves beneath a mask of haughty confidence. But that retreat was only the beginning of the storm that was about to erupt. The Uber turned onto a side street behind Rodeo Drive, quietly carrying Naomi away from the store she once considered her brainchild. But this time, her gaze no longer shimmered with the pride it held on opening day. It was cold, sharp, and pained, yet burning with an unshakable resolve. The driver, a middle-aged Latina woman named Rosa, glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Are you all right? You look like you just went through something heavy." Naomi didn't answer immediately. Her hand clutched her phone like it held vital evidence. "Maybe I did, but it won't end here." When the car pulled to the curb, Naomi took a deep breath and dialed her first call. "Maya, it's me. I need to initiate immediate termination proceedings for discriminatory conduct." Her voice was firm, clear. "The person in question is Denise Carraway, store manager at Beverly Hills." Maya Chen, chief of staff, was silent for a few seconds. "What happened, Naomi?" She scrutinized my appearance, questioned my financial capability, interrogated my employment status, and ultimately accused me of theft in my own store, in front of customers, on camera. The second call went to David Kim, the company's chief legal officer. "Prepare the case for discrimination, reputational damage, and a full audit of HR practices at the Beverly Hills branch." The third call was to Carmen Rodriguez, head of operations. "Activate emergency protocol. Denise Carraway must be suspended immediately before she causes further damage to the system." The fourth was to Jordan Martinez, Director of Communications. "Prepare a public response strategy. We're going to bring this situation into the light as a strong declaration of what our brand stands for." Naomi opened her laptop from the back seat, accessing the store's security system. Every step Denise took as she shadowed her like a suspect, every question, every invasive motion rifling through her bag, was captured in crystal clear resolution. Naomi began typing, logging each moment, each word, each glance that no one dared to challenge. She recorded it all, not for revenge, but to protect the values she had built over nearly 2 decades. A message from Elena, Naomi's life partner, popped up just as she saved her first entry. "How was the surprise inspection today?" Naomi didn't look up. She simply typed back one quiet line, laced with meaning. "Tomorrow will be the real surprise." She looked out the car window. The city still sparkled in the afternoon glow. But inside her, that light was shifting into a storm. And that storm would not stop at Beverly Hills. It would sweep away everything artificial, no matter how glittering the fashion veneer. 9 a.m. the next morning, the California sun poured through the tall glass panels of Lux and Calum, reflecting off the polished white marble floor. Naomi Ellington returned to the flagship store she built, but this time she did not come alone. To her right was Maya Chen, Chief of Staff. To her left, David Kim, Senior Legal Counsel. Walking behind them was Carmen Rodriguez from Operations, accompanied by 2 security officers carrying a thick stack of documents and a termination letter. They were not there for a tour. They were there to correct a mistake. Denise Carraway stepped out of the manager's office, a weekend sales report in hand. Still wearing the confident arrogance of someone who believed she had full control over the boutique floor. Her expression tightened when she saw the Armamilia group enter. But then she recognized the face of the troublesome customer from the day before. Denise stepped forward, her voice still sharp. "Ma'am, I believe I made it clear that you're not allowed to return to this store." David Kim stepped forward, presenting his attorney badge. "I represent Lux and Calum's legal department. We need to speak to you about your employment status, immediately." Denise froze. "Lux and Calum? This is my store. Wait. Who are you people?" Maya Chen answered calmly, with no room for debate. "We are the executive team from the parent company, and Ms. Carraway, not only is our headquarters based in downtown Los Angeles, but the person who leads this company is standing right in front of you." Denise turned toward Naomi, her eyes still refusing to accept what was now obvious. "No, this can't be. You're saying you're—" Naomi nodded slowly. "I'm Naomi Ellington, founder and CEO of Lux and Calum, and you, unfortunately, picked the wrong person to humiliate." Staff members began gathering near the register. Sarah Williams, Ashley Park, Morgan Davis. Those who had witnessed the events of the previous day were now piecing together the final fragments of the truth. Denise clung to her last shred of denial. "This is a mistake. I've never heard your name. I report to regional management. I didn't know there was a Naomi Ellington in this system." Naomi looked her in the eye, "because you never cared to find out who was truly behind this brand. You only saw what was on the surface." David Kim stepped forward, his voice resolute. "Denise Carraway, you are officially terminated, effective immediately, for severe violations of conduct policy and discriminatory behavior toward a customer." Denise stumbled back, stunned. "No, you can't do this. You don't have the right." Carmen stepped in, signaling the security officers. "You have 20 minutes to collect your personal belongings. All company property must remain on site." The atmosphere grew heavy. Denise looked around. The same people who once laughed with her now avoided her gaze. Sarah Williams stepped forward hesitantly. "Ms. Ellington, I'm sorry I didn't speak up yesterday." Naomi offered a soft smile, though her eyes remained stern. "We'll talk later, Sarah. Right now I have something more urgent to address." She turned back to Denise, the woman who had humiliated her in the very place she built from the ground up, and said, each word clear and unwavering, without raising her voice, "I am the one who pays your salary, and you chose to target me." Those final words cracked through the room like thunder on a summer afternoon. Everyone understood. This moment would not only alter Denise's fate, it would send shockwaves through the entire luxury fashion industry in the days to come. The moment Naomi Ellington revealed her true identity, the entire Lux and Calum boutique fell silent, as if the air had been sucked from the room. Denise Carraway stepped back, her face pale, lips trembling as if searching for an escape that did not exist. Sarah Williams stood frozen, hand over her mouth, while Ashley Park went still. The memory of her proud congratulations to Denise the day before now stained with quiet shame. Naomi stepped forward, each stride reclaiming her domain, without a business card, without any introduction, because her presence alone was the undeniable proof of true authority. "Ms. Carraway," David Kim spoke, holding a thick leather-bound dossier in hand, "you are hereby terminated for severe misconduct, including systemic discriminatory behavior, damage to brand reputation, and violation of internal conduct policy." Denise tried to salvage what she could. "I was just following standard theft prevention procedures," Naomi interrupted, gently but firmly. "No, you were following your bias, and your bias became a barrier, not just to customers and employees, but even to me, the founder of this place." She turned to face the entire staff. "I created Lux and Calum, not to build a space of luxury for the few, but to prove that elegance can exist alongside inclusivity. That everyone, regardless of race, class, or background, deserves to experience beauty without being mooted or degraded." She took out her phone and played the video of Saturday's incident. Victoria's accusatory voice, Denise's invasive search of Naomi's bag, all appeared clearly on screen. 6.7 million views, she said. And every one of those views is a witness to this truth, that a single act of prejudice can topple an entire system. Sarah Williams raised her hand, voice trembling. "Ms. Ellington, I stayed silent. I knew it was wrong. But Silence," Naomi cut in, not with reproach, but with clarity, "is also a choice. But from today, I hope those who once stayed silent will choose to speak up for change." Maya Chen handed Naomi a folder. She raised it in front of everyone. "I am the one who invested $12 million into this store. I selected every item, every design, every person, and I too was suspected, searched, and asked to leave. All because I did not match someone's idea of what a real customer looks like." Denise had no more words. As the security staff approached, she realized there was nothing left to hold on to. As she exited the store, she glanced back, not to beg, but to try and understand how a woman with a weathered Hermes bag could possibly hold an empire in her hands. Naomi said nothing more, because some lessons need no explanation, and some endings are inevitable for those who never learn to see people with respect. As the glass door closed behind Denise Carraway, it felt as though the boutique had been released from pressure, the tension dissipating into the quiet hum of realization. Every gaze shifted toward the woman standing at the center of the marble floor, the one who had just overturned the entire hierarchy this place once upheld. Naomi Ellington adjusted the collar of her blazer, her eyes scanning each face, not with a trace of arrogance, but with the calm resolve of someone who had lived long enough with prejudice to no longer be surprised by it, yet never once accepted it. "We are not just talking about a manager who was fired," she said. "We are standing at a moment where the entire industry, must take a hard look at itself. Sarah Williams, her eyes red, asked hesitantly, "Ms. Ellington, what do you plan to do next?" Naomi turned to her, her voice gentle. "We're going to change everything. Not just here, but in all 47 stores across our network. We will retrain every employee, review our welcoming procedures, and implement an anonymous feedback system for customers. And for those who speak up like you, Sarah, you won't be punished. You'll be given a chance." A quiet round of applause followed, not loud, but heavy with meaning. Naomi continued, "I've lived with suspicion in every glance since I was a young graduate selling from a flea market booth. But I chose not to let those looks define my future. I built Lux and Calum so people like me, and like all of you, would no longer have to prove we're worthy just to buy a dress." Maya Chen stepped forward, handing each employee a new code of conduct. David Kim nodded to the 2 security officers, who quietly exited, while Carmen Rodriguez began jotting down key points for systemic reform. Naomi raised her phone high. "This is the first image of a new chapter. A store once seen as a symbol of elitism will now become a symbol of transformation." The camera shutter clicked. There were no gowns, no stylists, no makeup. Just a CEO standing alongside her team, and a future beginning to rewrite itself from the inside out. That evening, the video Naomi posted, documenting the dismissal and her commitment to reform, reached over 1 million views in just 6 hours. The hashtag #LuxuryForAll spread across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Influencers reshared it, along with their own experiences of being discriminated against in luxury spaces. Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar all reached out for interviews. Naomi declined every offer for entertainment television appearances. Instead, she accepted an invitation to speak at the National Fair Trade Forum. The story was no longer an isolated incident. It had become a movement. A woman humiliated in the very store she founded chose not to retaliate with rage, but to lead through reform. And in that calm resolve, she sparked one of the most profound and quiet revolutions the luxury retail world has ever witnessed. 2 years after being humiliated by her own employee inside the flagship store in Beverly Hills, Naomi Ellington stepped once again through the familiar threshold of Lux and Calum. But this time, she wasn't reclaiming her dignity. She was leading a quiet revolution that had already taken root. The boutique had changed, not through chandeliers or wallpaper, but through the eyes that now knew how to listen, the greetings that felt sincere, and a culture that no longer needed to emphasize inclusion, because now it was simply the default. Sarah Williams, now the store's general manager, greeted Naomi with a confident smile. "This quarter's revenue is the highest across the entire system. Customer satisfaction rate is at 98%. Naomi nodded gently, but her eyes searched for something else, and she found it near the accessories counter, a young Latina mother shopping for an evening gown with her daughter. No one stared. No one questioned their presence. They didn't have to prove themselves. They simply existed and enjoyed beauty like everyone else. Marcus Rodriguez, a program graduate from the Mitchell Fellowship Fund, approached with the evening's itinerary. "Our guest of honor tonight is Dr. Angela Washington, a cardiac surgeon." She requested a stylist with in-depth knowledge of sustainable fashion. Naomi smiled. She didn't need to ask any further. The change was rooted in every detail, every process. Lux and Calum had become living proof of a simple truth. Respect does not diminish luxury. It is the foundation that gives luxury meaning. That evening, at the Excellence in Inclusion Awards, the first time a luxury retail brand had ever received such recognition, legendary designer Diane von Furstenberg took the stage. Naomi Ellington didn't just change how we serve customers. She changed how we value people in the fashion industry. The spotlight shone on Naomi, but what lit up in her eyes was more than recognition. It was validation that by choosing not to stay silent, she had ensured that millions of customers after her would no longer endure being dismissed because of how they looked. When the celebration ended, Naomi lingered in the main hall. It had once been the scene of a deep wound, now transformed into a symbol of healing. Dr. Washington approached, carrying a delicately wrapped shopping bag. "Thank you for building a place where I can choose a dress for a conference without having to filter my words, my posture, or my presence." Naomi nodded gently, because sometimes victory doesn't need to be declared. It appears in how customers walk with upright posture, unguarded eyes, and the quiet confidence that they belong. As for Denise Carraway, she was now completing court, ordered community service. Rumor had it she had genuinely changed, working as a consultant on bias recognition in retail. Naomi didn't keep track, because this battle had never been about taking down a single person. It was about dismantling an outdated system and replacing it with something fairer, something more beautiful. Lux and Calum continued to expand. But more importantly, the story Naomi left behind wasn't written in new store openings. It lived in the simple truth that from now on, a woman of color walking into a boutique would no longer be asked to open her bag. And if anyone dared to ask, the system would already have another Naomi standing quietly, stepping forward and saying, "I'm the founder here." This story is not just about an act of discrimination in the retail industry. It is a wake-up call for the entire business world about the power of prejudice and the cost of silence. Naomi Ellington did not choose revenge. She chose to rebuild, and that made all the difference. If you believe that respect should never depend on appearances or the color of a credit card, hit like and subscribe to help spread the right values in the business environment. And don't forget to leave a comment with these 3 words. Respect comes first, because sometimes one action taken at the right moment is enough to change an entire industry.